What's up, everybody? My name is Scotty Madonia, and right now I am in a very noisy Times Square in the heart of New York City, right down the street from 1515 Broadway, which is the home of CBS Mornings. Because tonight on the show is someone who you may know as a co-host of CBS Mornings, or from her work for the Oprah magazine, or from her show, Gayle King in the House on Sirius XM. Amongst all that, she's also one of Time Magazine's 100 most influential people of 2019. But tonight, Gayle King is not in the house. She's in the vibe chamber.
Wow.
Gayle King, how you doing?
Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. I know you're a very, very busy person, so I appreciate you taking this time out.
As are you. As are you. I think your background, Scotty, is so cool. Very, very nice.
Thank you. I've been doing this show for about 3 years, and it started with I had a singular light mounted on my wall. And then, I start to get sick of that. And then I got a couple more lights, and now I have a kind of nicer setup, but I'm kind of a gear junkie, so I'm always buying new stuff.
You're like that George Jefferson of the Jeffersons, moving on up to these. So you were doing this even when you were here? You were doing this?
Yeah, so I did it for a year and a half, I believe, and then I became a page, and I did it a little bit when I was a page, mostly at Drew. And then I did a few episodes, but to be honest, as a page, our schedules were very hectic. So while CBS Mornings is in the morning, obviously, I could work there from 5 to 10 or whatever, and then I don't know where I'm going to be the rest of the day, and it's on kind of short notice. So I took a little bit of a break. I took about, I think, 8 months off, and then I got back about a year ago, and I've just been hammering at it. So I appreciate you. I have to make one edit to the canon here because the show is called The Vibe Chamber. And I like to clarify, it is not a podcast because I don't like the word podcast, to be honest. I call it the internet's late night show. But here's something, if anyone's watching live, they might notice. It is not late night at the moment because I'm with the queen of mornings.
No, I like this, the Vibe Chamber. I'm going to write that down.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking in the Vibe Chamber, Scotty, there must be good vibes.
There's always good vibes.
That's what I'm thinking, the Vibe Chamber. Okay.
But I have to show you this. This is a clock that I've set to a place called Kingsford in honor of you, Australia, where right now it is 11:13 at night. So canonically, it's like it's 5 o'clock somewhere. It is late night somewhere. So I have to clarify that this is off camera, but it is still a late night show.
I like it. That's nice.
So I just want to ask, so you're originally from Chevy Chase, right? In Maryland?
Yeah. That's where, I was actually born in Chattanooga, Tennessee, but I wasn't there very long. Mm-hmm. And then I grew up in my formative years. I lived in Turkey from 1st grade to 6th grade.
And
then my
Ankara,
senior year of high school. Yeah. I was in Ankara. My senior year of high school, my family moved to Chevy Chase, Maryland. So that's where, by the time I went there, I was in college then. Mm-hmm. But my family, my sisters and everybody grew up there.
My girlfriend is from Potomac, Maryland, which is very, very close.
Yeah. They're like right next door to each other.
Yeah.
And she knows.
And your father was deployed. That's why you ended up going to Turkey, right?
No, he was an electronic engineer who worked for the government. I was never in the military. And he was just assigned to Ankara, Turkey. And that's where we lived. And, when you're a little kid, you just go wherever your parents go. Mm-hmm. And so, people said, boy, what an experience you had. I didn't even think of it as an experience. I just thought of it as this is my life.
Do you remember much of your early life before? Because I know you moved there when you're 6. Do you remember much of the life before you moved?
No, I don't. You can remember bits and pieces of like Halloween, but my actual life, no. Turkey, I remember very well.
Mm-hmm. Living there, since you were there for your real formative kind of educational years. I mean, 6 to 12. Did that kind of affect the way that you kind of viewed America when you moved back? Because you were learning about it, even though you'd been there for a little while, you were kind of learning about America as an outsider. So when you did eventually move back, did that affect the way you kind of thought about it?
No, because I really didn't see myself as an outsider. We always knew we were American and that we were living in Turkey. And when you're a little kid, what does that really mean? I'm American, you know? I just knew that I spoke English and my Turkish friends spoke Turkish. Um, and you all played together, but I had no sense of, your country versus my country. I just knew I'm from the States. We now live here, and this is what our life is like. And so when I came back, the thing that affected me most, when I lived in Turkey, no one had televisions.
Hmm.
So I was a voracious reader. We went to the library. Scotty, they had these things called library cards. I don't know if you've ever heard of those, but I had my own little library card. I did a lot of reading. When I came back from the States, it was television. I hadn't really seen television. So I became really fascinated with all things television. That was a big difference for me. Like, oh my God, look at this TV. This is so cool. That's what I remember being most impressed with. And McDonald's. And McDonald's, this fast food hamburger place where you could get hamburgers in a couple of minutes and the fries that were the best. That was like, wow, America's wonderful. TV and McDonald's.
But then when you end up moving back, you end up becoming pretty interested in psychology. How did that happen?
Well, when you first go to college, I don't know about you, but I had no clue what I was going to do, honestly. When they talk about picking out your major and what you want to do, I didn't know what I wanted to do for the rest of my life at 18. Honestly, that's why I really admire kids who knew when I was 10, I knew I wanted to do X, Y, and Z. Or I did something with Elon Musk recently, and he knew he was always fascinated by space as a little kid. I didn't have that kind of love for anything. What I did know was that I love reading, I love writing, and you're sitting there with your course book trying to pick a major. So I knew I didn't want math and science. That did not interest me, but I did always like listening to people's problems. And I thought, maybe I'd be good in psychology. That literally is how it happened.
So
Sitting there looking at the course load. So it's not like I had this lifelong dream about psychology, but I did think I like talking to people. I was told I was a nosy kid. I call it curiosity. So I thought I'd like to see where will this take me? And that's how it happened.
were there any other options? I mean, eventually you end up working in news, of course. But before you had that kind of interest in psychology, was there anything else that you were thinking, like, maybe I'd try this?
Never thought about news either. I thought, I also thought I'd be good as a lawyer. I could see myself in a courtroom arguing my case. And I said, I'm never going to represent a bad guy. I would always work for the state to get the bad guys. So I saw myself doing that or being a child psychologist. That's what I was thinking.
And then when did you decide, I'm actually going to go to college for psychology? Like, this is something that I think I'm really going to, like, was it close to college when you decided that that's where you're going to go for your major?
No, I decided in college when I was filling out my paperwork, literally. I'm literally sitting in the student union with all these papers sitting on the floor, trying to think that's literally what I decided right then and there. Because back then you had to pick a major. You had to declare a major, which is crazy. So I said, okay, psychology it is. That's what I did.
What did your parents think about that?
I was told that you can pick the major, and if you wanted to change it, you can. So that gave me some comfort in knowing that.
And so did your parents, were they approving of that decision?
Yeah, they were very supportive. I come from a home where my dad told me at a very early age, you can do and be anything that you want to be. So it never occurred to me that I could not. I was always raised, education was top priority in our house. I came from a home that if you didn't have homework, my dad would come up with homework for you. It was one of those that I thought was actually awful. But now when you're older, you have a great appreciation for it. So they were supportive of whatever I wanted to do.
Were your parents really strict at all?
I thought they were strict. Yeah, I thought they were. I mean, I was raised in one of those houses that, whatever your dad said went. There was no talking back. There was no questioning. And I think that he died when I was a freshman in college. And I was just getting to the point where I could say, I disagree with you about that. I was just getting to that point. And I actually think my mom told me later that he got a kick out of that, because I would say, well, that doesn't make sense to me, or I don't want to do that. I had just gotten comfortable enough because, you observe the world and you see things and you realize parents aren't necessarily right about everything.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is a way to challenge without being disrespectful. But yeah, my dad was no joke and made it clear that he had expectations about how we were to behave and how we were to live.
How do you view yourself as a parent in terms of, I guess, a contrast to how they were when you were, raising your favorite son and your favorite daughter? How did you?
Daughter, well, I am very, how shall we say, hands-on. And they did a thing. They did a thing back years ago. There was a thing called helicopter parents.
Uh-huh.
And I said to Kirby and Will, do you guys think I'm a helicopter parent? And so Kirby said, what did Will say? And I said, I haven't talked to Will yet. I called you first. And all Kirby says was, I hear choppers. So I wanted them to know, I wanted to be the first person they saw in the morning and the last person that they saw in the evening.
Mm-hmm.
Was I strict? No, I wasn't strict. But I wasn't one of these houses where I'm trying to be your friend.
Mm.
It was very clear that I'm the parent and you're the child. I want to hear I want to hear what you think. But at the end of the day, I had the final say. And I would call, we would have disagreements. And I'd say, well, you know what, guys, I'm making a mommy decision and yay or nay to whatever it is. But they were not afraid of me. Neither one of them were ever afraid of me.
Mm.
So they were raised with a lot of love, but they also knew who was the boss in the house.
Well, one story I heard that was really interesting is about how you actually called your daughter's boyfriend's parents in for a meeting.
Yes.
Which,
yes, I did.
By the way, is a hilarious story. But I didn't realize you are very hands-on. You're like, I'm going directly to the source.
Well, Scotty, she was a junior or senior in high school. She had a curfew at, 11 o'clock or something like that. When she wasn't there by 11 o'clock, I was very concerned. 11 turned into 12, turned into 1, turned into 2, turned into 3. I was just about to call the police. And so when she came in, you're that cross between furious and relieved. Where were you guys? Oh, we went to the so-and-so diner and we fell asleep. Oh, you fell asleep. Where'd you fall asleep? Well, we were sitting in the car and we fell asleep. Oh, okay. So the next day I did call his parents and I asked for a meeting. And I said, listen, I'm not going to say Kirby doesn't make mistakes, but I also know Kirby wouldn't have done this, stayed out, if she hadn't been with your son. So I would respectfully like you all to, I prefer they don't see each other again. I did say that.
I respect that.
Kirby was mortified. She was very upset with me. And I said, listen, I'm not blaming him. I'm not blaming Scotty for all of this because you have some say in this. But I also know you aren't the kind of kid that just stays out late like that. You that's just not who you are. And he came from a religious home. And let me say, a year later, he was arrested and was in jail. So I feel that I've proved my point.
Well, I respect that you did that because I feel like some parents would just say, "Oh, you're grounded." I like that you went straight to the source. Oh,
she was grounded too.
she got the whole kit and caboodle.
But I just didn't think that was a good fit for her. I didn't think that. I was very concerned, and I wanted to head that off at the pass. As it turns out, this kid, as we later learned, had a whole lot of issues. But Kirby has always had a savior complex that I can help you, I can make you be better. Mm-hmm. So that worked out okay. Kirby's happily married and has a baby, has a 2-year-old. So she's doing great. She's doing great.
And that's all thanks to you.
Yeah. I'm not going to say that because,
I will. I'll say it right now.
No. But this is the thing. She is doing very well in her life. And now we can laugh about it now, Scotty. It was not funny at the time, but now we can laugh about it.
I've had a moment, the most embarrassing moment. I've never told my mom. Oh my Lord, my mom's listening.
Let me hear.
Had a video. Remember, it was iMovie was a program on a computer.
Okay.
And my friends and I, we're like 10, 11, and you make videos. Yes. And I had said some curse words. And my mom was on my computer, and it was the most mortified I had ever been. And it has stuck with me my entire life that I remember her saying specifically, as if it's like it's a movie, how exact this was. She's like,
Yeah.
I'm not mad.
Yeah.
I'm
I'm
disappointed. And
disappointed. Yeah,
that
mom.
ruined my
Yeah,
life.
mom. Yeah. It is worse to be disappointed when you have the relationship with your children. Because I wasn't a spanker. I wasn't a spanker at physically hitting them.
Yeah.
I think they would be more devastated if I was disappointed than if I was mad. Someone told me years ago, and I think this is so true, Scotty. If kids don't think you care, they don't care what you think. And my kids always knew that I care. And it's the same thing. That's why you're so affected by what your mom is saying, because you know she cares about you. You know she's only doing the best for you, and you don't want to let her down.
I was
And on the flip side, I don't want to let my kids down either. They've asked me to do Dancing with the Stars, Scotty, 4 times, and my kids go, God, please don't do that, please. I would never do that because they would be so publicly humiliated, and I'm a terrible, terrible dancer.
I want you should take lessons and just do it. I think it'd be amazing.
I beg your pardon, Scotty. I have taken a hip hop dance class
A
at the
singular or multiple?
well. It was a session of 12 classes or something,
Hmm.
and my instructor was a woman named Tweety, and she came to me, and I'm dancing, and she goes, Gail, I can see you're working really hard, and you're doing the moves, but you don't have any rhythm. So
So
I have to accept the fact that I'm a crappy dancer, but I still love dance and I still love music.
your teacher wasn't mad. She was just disappointed.
Right, right,
Uh,
right, right.
but so jumping back to your career a little bit. So you get out of college and then you're working in a camera store and a man approaches you, says that you seem like someone who would work well in news. And I know your father was big on pushing the importance of news. And I used to watch Walter Cronkite every night.
Yeah,
My mother loved Walter Cronkite.
yeah, we did
He
too.
was amazing. That was the first thing when I started working at CBS. I was in the newsroom and I was like, this is where like this is where the most important news broadcasts ever
I
had happened.
know.
Blew my mind every time I was there.
I feel that too. We have Walter Cronkite's map. Well, we used to at our old studio have Walter Cronkite's map in the studio. And I can remember thinking my dad, who was such a news junkie, would have been so proud that all these years later, the man we used to watch on TV, I never got to meet Walter Cronkite, but I am now working at the place where he used to work. And I get a kick out of that because I know that would have made him so proud.
It's amazing, honestly.
But I never thought about TV as a career. You're never.
That's so, it's funny. I never thought about this. I mean, this isn't a career yet. It's not financially positive, but I never thought I would end up doing this. I went to music school. So it's amazing how things can just happen.
Yeah, it's baby steps. Sometimes God has a bigger dream for you than you have for yourself.
Well, the thing that I was curious about asking, so you started your career as a PA at WFSB,
Yeah.
and something that I think is interesting is that since you've started at the bottom, you've paid your dues, and you've worked at basically every rung of the ladder in the industry.
I really have. You're right.
When you have to deal with someone who's in that position, like a PA or an intern or in CBS cases like a page,
Yes.
what drives you more crazy? Someone who is a complete kiss ass, oh, I'm around celebrities. I'm gonna phone it up for them, even though it's disingenuous, or someone who just could not care enough.
Um, well, neither one of those are good. Do you have any other options? I mean, I always say this, you can always tell someone, you can tell if someone is serious or going to make it in this place. There are some people that come and they're always looking at their watch, like, how much longer do I have to be here? And there are other people like yourself who are like, what can I do? Do you need anything? How can I help? And you can do it in a way that's not kiss ass. Number one, everybody knows what a kiss ass is. And there's a difference between being obnoxious, or being someone who just really wants to learn and really wants to grow. And I think I'm pretty good at picking the people out that are like, oh, Mrs. Cleaver, you remember there was a show called Leave It to Beaver. Mrs. Cleaver, I love your dress today. You want somebody who's really serious about learning and wanting to do better in this job. And I do gravitate towards those type of people. Other people who are just sitting there biding their time, then, I don't see the importance of making an investment that doesn't, with someone who doesn't seem to care and is just sort of checking off a box to be here.
When you were really new and green to the industry, and I'm realizing now, I said WFSB, I meant to say WJZ. When you were first there, do you remember making any mistakes where you were like, oh, this is over for me?
Oh no,
I'm at the bottom. I'm screwed now.
no. I mean, you make mistakes. Once I overslept, which is the worst thing to do. You're supposed to be there early morning, and I was supposed to get something. I screwed that up. It was a big snowstorm, so you shrink in those moments because you think people think you're irresponsible,
Hmm.
and I never wanted that. Um, but people make mistakes, and you're going to make a lot of mistakes. The secret is that you will learn from your mistakes, and you won't do it again. And when people can see that you're sincerely sorry for whatever the screw up is, um, very few mistakes I think are irreparable. But when you make a mistake and you own up to it and not try to skirt around it or not try to um, deny it or act like it didn't happen, people are pretty understanding because we've all made mistakes.
I think of it as the difference between you messed up versus you did something wrong because of negligence. Because negligence
Yeah,
is so much worse. Just not caring just because
yeah.
you just really didn't put enough effort in versus what, like literally
Well, that's how
everyone.
I felt. But that's how I felt that day I overslept because I think that is irresponsible. And I do think that is negligence. The alarm went off. I just kept, I was so tired that I just kept hitting the snooze button.
Yeah.
And you have to really work extra hard for people to realize, I'm not a screw up. I'm not a slacker. I've just, made a mistake.
Hmm. Well, then, so after Baltimore as a PA, you managed to move, as a PA to then training to be an on-air talent in DC, which is one of the 10 largest news network or markets in the country. How did that happen? How did that connection
Well, I, I
happen?
I think I had an inside track there because I had worked at the camera store, which is where one of the Mucky Mucks met me. But when I was in college, and said, "You have a nice voice, nice way. Have you ever thought about television?" No, no, no. I ended up getting an entry-level job there. And then I had to get a real job at Baltimore as a production assistant / writer. And then I applied for this training program at my old station. And the first time I applied, Scotty, I did not get it. And I couldn't believe I didn't get this job because everybody knew me. I knew they liked me. I knew they could tell I worked really hard. And I didn't get that job. I was devastated. I didn't get it because I thought, I know this is a shoe. And I've been here for 2 years. I know all these people. And when I didn't get it, I went to the news director and said, I'd like to respectfully ask what happened. And he said, "Gayle, all I can say to you is life ain't fair. Any other questions?" Which sort of shuts down that conversation. So I go to Baltimore and he said, "You should reapply." And that's what I did a year later. And I reapplied and I got the job. And then it just shows me just because you're qualified, just because people like you, sometimes you don't get what you're supposed to get at the time you're supposed to get it. And you've got to continue to carry on. And then I ended up getting the job. And then after that reporter training program, you send out a resume tape and it was off to the races. And I've been working ever since.
Hmm. And
I'm still working, Scotty, still.
how long after that, when you sent out those tapes, did you get moved over to Connecticut to start working at WFSB?
Well, I had a job in Kansas City first. I worked in Kansas City for 3 years. That was the first job out of the training program. And after I worked in Kansas City for 3 years, I love Kansas City too. I loved it. It is one of the best cities. And I had no idea what it was like. People think that, you're going to go into a cowboy town with people walking bare feet and chewing on straws. I mean, I had no concept of what it was going to be, but it's very sophisticated. I love that place. So I worked there for 3 years and then came back to the East Coast and was at FSB for a gazillion years.
And then while you're there, so you moved there in the early, I think, believe the 80s, 81 or 82,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you get married that same year. And while you're at WFSB, that's your longest continuous stint
Yeah.
of almost,
Yeah.
it was 18 years
Yep.
there. And that's
I got married. I got divorced. I had children. I had a long career. Everything happened to me at WFSB.
Well, had you always planned on, I want to find a place? Because, some people, they want to move around. They want to try new things. They want to go to these stations. Had you always said, I want to find a place and stay there for a long time? Or was it really the marriage and then subsequently having your children that was a larger factor?
I didn't have this 5-year plan. You know how people say, I'm going to be here, and then I'm going to be here, and then I'm going to be there. I think part of my mind thinking was, I would like to be in a top 10 market. There are 212 television markets, 212. And Kansas City was 20 something. Hartford was like 21 or something. And so I thought, if I could be in a top 10 market in local news, I'd be very happy because, when you're the local news anchor, it really is a big fish in a little pond. But I liked having a strong sense of community. That was my grocery store. That was my team. This was my neighborhood. This was my community. I like that. So I just thought if I could be in a top 10 market, I'd be very happy. But then, you get a divorce, life changes, you get other opportunities, and you go on to different things. But I would have never thought I would have ended up here at CBS, and here I am. This wasn't something I coveted, sought, even dreamed about, and yet here I am.
So you were
very happy.
You were at OWN at the time when you
Yeah.
first started talking about mornings, right?
Yep.
Who was the first person that got in touch with you? Was it Chris Licht?
It was Chris Licht. Now, Chris Licht, I'd worked with him before because he had done CBS Morning. It was called CBS This Morning at the time.
Yep.
So I had worked with him. I had worked with him before. So I had a rapport and a relationship with him. And, he's one of the people I credit with. I credit him with where I am today in terms of CBS. I would have never been brought into the CBS family without Chris Licht.
So when he called you,
clearly, Scotty, he has an eye for talent.
I mean, right after mornings, it was Colbert, and now it's CNN.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, keep in mind he had started Morning Joe with Mika and Joe. Then he came and did CBS Mornings and CBS This Morning and changed that. And then he got called to Colbert. So he knows. This guy knows what he's doing.
Was that Morning Joe when wasn't that over near where FAO Schwartz used to be uptown, where the Apple store is now? Isn't that where they taped Morning Joe?
It was, I thought they did it at Rockefeller Center, I thought.
The shows before CBS This Morning, when I started working there, I learned from like CBS This Morning on, and I used to get...
I thought it was in BC. I thought it was at 30 Rock, but I'm not sure.
James gave me a whole rundown a couple years ago, like a timeline of every show that is like attached to CBS Mornings, but it's escaping me.
It's a very long list. Very.
So wait, when Chris called you, what was exactly the idea? Was it just straight out, we like you, we want you? I know it was because they're reworking the show and they wanted to kind of do some personnel changes, but what was the exact pitch? What was the idea that he talked to you about?
He said, we want to reimagine the mornings. And we want to know if you want to be a part of it. Reimagine the mornings. How? Well, he was taking away the weather person. He goes, what do you need to know about weather? You just need to know I go, there's not going to be a weather person? There's not going to be cooking segments. You're not going to wear costumes on Halloween. We want to focus. We want a show that is very news focused. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm a news junkie, so he was singing my song. We want to reimagine the morning. Would you like to be a part of it? And I was definitely intrigued, and that's how it started.
How long were those talks of, would you like to be, here are the ideas, before it was really set in stone and it was like, I'm doing this?
I would say a month max,
Mm-hmm.
a month max.
So very quick turnaround.
Well, it was very quick. It was very quick.
That's amazing.
He reached out to me, and then I met with other executives here and met with the team here. It might not even have been a month before they got me on board. And then it might have been a little bit longer before they delayed the announcement to tell people that this was going to happen. But no, once he called me, it happened fairly quickly with me listening and thinking, God, this sounds really fantastic. I would love to be a part of this.
Yeah. And then speaking about Chris Licht, you have a show coming out soon, King Charles, which is going to air in the fall, which I know Chris Licht was a part of ever since he took over CNN. Oh, yeah. How did that conversation start?
Well, he called me up and said, we're looking at programming at CNN, and we have this idea. And the idea would be you and Charles Barkley on a show. I go, me and Charles Barkley on a show? What are we doing? He said, we want it to be, taking a look at the news. And I like that. And, I've met Charles Barkley a couple times. I think he is hilarious. I think he's very smart, very quick. I think he knows exactly what he's doing. And the beauty to me is that neither one of us, Charles or I, thought, I'm looking for more work. I need to do another show. I was intrigued by him, and I think he was intrigued by me. So I can't wait to get started.
And I heard him say,
we're putting the team together.
And I heard him say specifically that he doesn't want the show he wants to talk about politics, but he doesn't want the show to be political.
Exactly.
Is that something that you think is just going to naturally happen based on how you guys interact, or have you been working on very specific things to make sure that happens?
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, we really are just getting started with it in terms of putting the team together. But I think Charles is absolutely right with that statement. We'll talk about many different things, but I do not see it or believe that it will be a political show.
I'm excited to see it, Gayle.
Yeah,
Well,
me too.
unfortunately, I got to let you go. But before I do, real quick, top 5 country music artists. What do you say?
Oh, because I love country music. Oh my God. Maren Morris, for sure. Kane Brown, for sure, for sure, for sure. I just did a big interview with him recently. We went to his house with his wife, who is a doll, and they have that song, Thank God, out. I adore him.
Mm-hmm.
I adore him. I feel great affection and affinity for him. Carrie Underwood, who I first met on American Idol. She's still one of my favorites. All things Lady A. I love all things Lady A. We did something with Charles, but I just like their music. And when their songs just hit me in a certain way. Asking me to pick is very tough because I like some of them. I like all of them so much. And I have to single out Carly Pearce. Love her. Love her.
I think
but there are so many. It's hard for me to just pick one. I love this. I love this genre. And what I really like is the people in the genre. They are some of the nicest people that you will ever meet.
I think I met, I believe Carly Pearce on Mornings once a couple years ago.
Yeah, Carly Pearce has been here. Mickey Guyton, I adore her. We met Mickey. I met Mickey Guyton. Klaus, who's in the studio, said, "Hey, I just saw this woman on the BET Awards. She was singing country. I think you would like her." And I listened to her music and I go, "What's her name? Let me find her." And then we ended up meeting her. And, everybody loves all things Dolly Parton, myself included. And I could go on and on and on.
Dolly Parton really is like America's sweetheart. I don't think there's anyone who dislikes her.
I don't know. You're exactly right. I don't know anybody that has anything negative to say about Dolly Parton ever.
And that's
ever.
Insane because
to
have no one dislike you is absolutely. I mean, I'm sure there's somebody, but to not hear about it, especially in the age of the internet.
I actually don't think there's anybody that dislikes her. I honestly don't, because she is that girl. She is that girl.
It's amazing. Well, Gayle, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Congratulations to you, Scotty. Congratulations. Bravo.
Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who watched. We will be live soon, and I'll see you guys all later.